this live? We need the lights off. We need uplighters. Are we live already?
Yeah, you're live.
Hello.
Hey.
Happy Halloween.
Proper spooky.
I don't know if you were hoping that we would have been in fancy dress or something like that. But we don't have time for that kind of shenanigans because we've got a product to deliver to all you guys. And so we have got some spooky sets that we'll get to because we thought it was funny. But we'll probably start with the important stuff, which is a little bit of an update on how we're getting on producing the Dubler studio kit. Mm-hmm. So should we dive straight in? If anyone is watching for the first time, I'm George.
I'm David.
Yeah, I'm Liam.
I'm Kelly. I'm in the background.
It's Kelly. We're doing Instagram today.
We're not doing Instagram today. We're going to be uploading this to Instagram TV. Yeah.
Okay.
We have a few questions as well from the from that doc form thing that we sent out, so we'll answer those questions. Oh no, they've just gone.
My right ideas put them on the wall.
And I don't know, have we got any way of taking live questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you're
keep an eye on them.
if
So
you're watching on
anyone has a
YouTube,
question.
stick them in the comments. And
Perfect.
we'll answer them live as well.
Cool. Right. Well, I guess there's a few things to update you on. The first and most important thing that might be a question on probably lots of your minds is where are the Dubler studio kits? Well, at the moment, they are on a boat just going around Italy, right?
Just off the coast of Italy, yeah. So it should be hopefully a few days away. It's got to make its way around Spain and up
scheduled for
towards
arrival November 4th in the docks in Southampton. Then they will go to a repacking fulfillment centre. We've already got that organised, where they're going to be met with, and I'll show you this one because it's a blank, so I'm not risking having to. So we've already, what we've been doing is sticking, although this is an unstuck one at the moment, download codes onto lovely little download code slips that will be going into the Dubler Studio Kit boxes. So that's one of the things that will be happening during the repack. So the microphones arrive, one of these cards goes in, along with, and this is a little bit of a spoiler alert, but given that not everyone's going to be watching this, it'll be a spoiler alert for those that are watching, we got some of these. These are our new Dubler stickers. You can't see on this side, there's actually a white equivalent of that over there. Transparent, yeah, they're transparent, so they end up looking. That was so badly done. Right, like that. So also, they'll be going in the box too. So they'll get repacked, and then they will be shipped out to everyone who got their order in before we ran out of our first order. So that's the first set of 1,500 units that are coming in. So everyone that backed on Kickstarter, everyone that backed on Indiegogo, and a few people, and you'd all know who you are because it was absolutely very clear. So basically, if you bought one from the first shipment, then they'll be fulfilled from, it'll probably take about a week of repacking, I expect, so from mid-November onwards, and then they will be shipped out to you with a tracking number, so it really depends where around the globe you are as to how long that will happen. Caveat, we don't know what will happen when they arrive in the port. It may well be that for some unforeseen reason they get held up for a week. It's not unheard of that happens. It's not unheard of that happens for even longer. But also it might go absolutely smoothly and we'll hit those timelines for kind of shipping out mid-November. So fingers crossed, it seems like we're in a pretty good position for it at the moment.
And we'll probably be sending out emails at each stage just to keep you guys informed about where it is, when it's landed, if it's in customs, when we're going to hand out tracking IDs. So don't worry, we'll be in touch.
Now, of course, we had the product finished absolutely ages ago. So obviously that's not true. Right up until the final minute, we're also making changes, additions, tweaks to the actual software. One aspect to that is we've had a couple of people in this week. Some of the backers actually came in to do some testing for us. There's going to be a little bit more of that. General feedback has been really, really positive. Have also found a couple of bugs, which is great, because the more bugs that we can find before it's sent out, the less painful it's going to be for everyone involved. So currently we're furiously finishing off the product and trying to iron out any bugs.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the benefits of the microphones being on the boat right now, is that we've got that extra time to just kind of like get everything 100% working. But the plan is, it'll go out as soon as those microphones have hit your doorsteps.
And if we do end up with any extra time from a software point of view, we have a whole host of features that we want to get in, the vast majority of which, if not all of which, will be coming after the first release. But that's the nice thing about having a software product, is that we can keep updating it remotely. But if we do get any extra time, then expect maybe an extra feature coming in. We'll see.
Yeah, we've been pushing 1 or 2 features out.
Working on a few things.
Well, I mean, that sort of slides into a question I guess we'll do now that we had, which was from Gabriel from Miami, who asked what sort of features are in the works for the coming year in terms of software capability, hardware add-ons, and increasing the frequency range that the mic can capture. So there's some things that are secret, some things that are just ideas that we might work on. So there's a few different bits. I mean, we don't want to jump in straight away in case I say one of the secret ones.
Let's give one.
Give one. Well, yeah.
Well, there's a second question.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go with the second question. Yeah. So Zen also asked, any update regarding the possibility of whistling instead of singing or humming melodies? Thanks again for your work. Yes, there is an update. It's in. That's it. Yeah, you can now whistle as well as humming and singing, which will basically pick up the pitch and turn your whistling into MIDI information. Yeah. Again, we didn't set up a little thing to show that.
Whilst Liam's setting up a little demo for you, our previous frequency range went up to 700 hertz, and now we've upped it to 5,000 hertz for whistling, because whistling it's surprisingly high pitch, and what we wanted to make sure before we added that improvement was that it wasn't going to add a lot of CPU load or affect the rest of the pitch. Mm-hmm. So we've gone through that. We're confident that we can add that in without causing any issues. Hopefully
there are some. There's kind of you want to use it in a slightly different way, is what we've found. So we'll do a little video on that. And in fact, one of the things that we're also working on between now and release, and we'll continue to do after, is a load of kind of tutorial materials, both kind of text pages, but also tutorial videos. And we will probably do one on whistling, because so if this is the normal way that you might sing into the Dubler mic, kind of like this, if you're going to whistle, the problem with that is you're going to be putting a lot of air over the microphone, and that can cause extra noise, which makes it harder to identify the pitch. So actually for whistling, you kind of hold it a little bit like this and turn up the sensitivity, but we will do. Are we going to do a demo right now?
Yeah, let's do a little one now. Yeah. So we'll just show you, this is on chromatic. So let's swap over the screen so you can see what we're looking at. So yeah, this is the profile just loaded up here. So it's on chromatic, but you'll hear if David.
Can they hear that?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's
coming out or something.
Is it alright?
Oh well, yeah. So this I've got it. I don't know what this synth might be rubbish. It's just a plain wave. So hopefully you can just hear what it's.
So this is me just singing normally, and if I whistle.
So straight away, really interesting on that is the pitch of the whistle is much higher than your brain makes you think it is.
Yeah.
So when you're using
you can use this.
You might want to pop an octave shift on.
There we go.
I'm not a strong whistler, so. It's hard on chromatic when you're whistling, like.
Right, should we switch to us doing it? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So what the thing there is, I'm doing this, and if I do this. It starts to get more confused with the notes, so it's a kind of
yeah, because you can see that when you're whistling, if you put your hand near your mouth, it's actually quite a lot of air, and when it's hitting the mic, it's creating noise. Yeah, but I keep it down here, so does George. So
Yeah, nice, man.
it's pretty clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So
That would work well for your favourite instrument, the Chinese violin.
To try that.
yeah, that is, as we said, like we just had chromatic on there. So I mean, it's pretty good considering most of the time. Well, I don't know what people's whistling is like. Mine's pretty rubbish, so I would have to stick it.
Okay, this isn't a Dubler thing, but Liam introduced us to this idea of whistling and humming at the same time, which I feel is kind of an appropriate thing to try and do on the Halloween because it sounds a bit like what was it you said it is?
It's like a UFO.
Okay. That's when you
Good
pipe
going,
in.
I can't do it now.
The pressure. Have we got any more questions?
Rubbish.
I actually have a question from James H. I've been
Yeah.
answering a few simple ones, but James H. asks, how intensive is it on CPU? I have a quad-core iMac, 16GB RAM, but it's pretty old now.
I could answer that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, on a quad-core iMac, it's going to be great. I don't know, I'm looking back there. It will work really, really well. We've got it. I mean, the laptop that we're actually demoing this and streaming on right now is a 2000.
It's a 2012.
It's a 1983 Apple.
Yeah, it's a 2012 MacBook Pro, and right now it's streaming, running Dubler, and I've got a few like quite CPU intensive plugins running right now, and it's fine so far before the stream crashes. Say this. But yeah, it's very small Dubler as well, like in terms of space. So
well, one of the questions of features as well, so there's a lot of exciting things. Cause going back to that, because we obviously got sidetracked with whistling, right? Going back, there's lots of exciting things that we have in the works that we don't want to announce, partly because they're experimental, and so we don't know if they're going to work yet, and therefore we don't want to announce them, get everyone's hopes up, and then it turns out that it doesn't really work. So we'll do that when we get to a stage where we're more confident it's going to happen. But there are also quite a lot of things that are going to happen under the hood, which are less like exciting features for everyone who's a user, but will make a big difference. And so one of them, for example, is on a lot of the Apple computers. Unless you happen to have a dedicated GPU, then it's going to struggle rendering animations, which is just something that all applications suffer from because of the way that Apple do their image rendering, right? But there's a new thing called Metal, blah, blah, blah. I won't go into all the details, but on the horizon, one of the things that we will be working on is implementing a different way of rendering animations, which will make the CPU usage a lot lower.
Absolutely, and on the iMac that has a dedicated graphics thing already, so you'll be okay, James. But for everyone else that has older laptops and before Metal is available to us, I spent over a month just optimizing on performance, and our other developer who isn't here with us right now, Cam, he also spent a lot of time. He's always profiling the app to make sure when we're adding new features, it doesn't jump up. So we've got a really strong focus on keeping it from affecting any other part of the system. We want you to be able to run Ableton or Logic or whatever and have all your synths going. So.
And James says, you laugh, but mine's 2009.
Oh right.
But
okay.
That's a pretty good spec for a 2009 computer.
Definitely.
Actually, I just have another question as well. It's a question we've had before, but definitely worth answering again. It's can Dubler be used on GarageBand on iOS? I mean iPad, iOS.
You go for it.
No, not yet. I mean, I think when we talk about features that will be coming at some stage, I mean. That feels like one that's maybe a little bit of a way off, because obviously the priority right now is about making sure that everyone gets to what has been promised, which is the Dubler Studio Kit, and making sure that when they do get it, when inevitably bugs are found, because there will be, as a brand new product, that we fix all of them and that everyone has a really great experience, and that we're available for customer support and all of that kind of stuff. So it does mean that like the time that we'll have to focus on new features will be reduced over the next few months while we just really focus on that. After that stage is over and everyone's happy, stable, got their product, then we can look about and come up with like what to work on next. And to be honest, what we really base that on is what you guys want. So if there's just a resounding appetite for having iPad, like getting something going on iPad, then that would work with GarageBand on iPad, for example, then that could be where we spend our time. If it's something else, if it's maybe having like a VST so we can get more information back from doors, then maybe it would be that. I mean, there's just a whole host of things we could do, and I think we won't just sit ourselves in a box and work on it. We'll talk to you guys and find out what we should be doing.
Yeah. So we had another question from Troy. Troy said, will programming the plugin to your voice one time suffice for multiple instruments, or will it require setting up every track and or session? So one thing, I guess, in terms of like programming the plugin to your voice, I guess that means like learning or teaching Dubler triggers. The pitch side doesn't require any programming, so that's just straight in and will work anytime. I mean, you can set your preference, but you can save your preferences in terms of like stickiness and things. But in terms of the triggers, you just basically need to do it once. But you can, and then you can save a profile, but you can have multiple profiles if you want. Yeah, when it comes to say like for multiple tracks or sessions, if you've got a kit that you like for your voice, you know, you've got your kick, you've got your snare and hi-hat and all that, then they'll always be there, but you might want to adjust it and have a separate one for a different session. So if you wanted to teach one like body sounds rather than like voice, you could do something like that. But yeah, just the one time is needed, and then that MIDI information is the same.
I'd say if you're someone who's like done a lot of beatboxing or vocal stuff before, then probably what will happen is you'll make your first profile, and maybe you'll do a second one or something soon after that, but then pretty much you'll be good for it. But what we find with a lot of people is the first time they get the Dubler Studio kit, they train a profile, as in they teach their voice maybe just 3 triggers to start with, maybe even just 2. They use it for 5 minutes and then they do it again. And then they'll use that for half an hour, and then they'll do it again. And it's because at the start you're progressing so much that you actually start to realize what kind of sounds you want to do, and you start making new sounds, and so you start adding those into it and stuff, and so you're constantly there developing it. And then you'll get to the point where actually it hits a bit more of a steady state. So you know, I don't consider myself to be a beatboxer, but I do now have the way that I make sounds. And so I don't retrain the profile very often. Every now and again it's worth doing, because you gradually still progressing, and then your voice is slightly changing, and so then I'll just go, oh actually, you know what, I'll retrain again, and then suddenly it's like, oh, it works better for me again. That's because it was trained to my voice from like 2 months ago or something like that. So I do think it's good to keep refreshing it. Plus, as Liam's saying, different use cases, and not just like kind of tapping and hitting things and stuff like that. I've got a set that's a bit more of a weirder one, which is kind of like for kind of like Ella Fitzgerald scat style singing, where none of the sounds are like drum sounds. They're more like do, be, ba, that kind of thing. And then you can set those to notes. And if I go like dooby 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 dooby, I can be triggering stuff with the do's, and I can also be controlling pitch notes, and it's just a totally different way of using it. So you also might want to have different sets for that, and then you would train depending on what you're using.
Yeah, I think that is something that's interesting that we haven't really touched on, but like interesting to see with you guys when they get them, is that each profile I think has a bit of like a songwriting method to it, and like your songwriting can almost start to be like affected by like a certain Dubler profile you have. And you might find that you write in a certain way that you know that has a style to it almost, which is something interesting. It's all very personal, so interesting to see how it affects like how you write, because you know it definitely helps how you write, but it also can start to like have a bit of like a input into like how you write a drum track, for example. So it's just because it's brand new, yes. So that is another thing. Each profile might have its own style to a song, for example. Like,
should we do some spooky sounds?
I've got one more question.
Ooh, yeah.
From Stuart. Is there a way to turn the microphone that we provide into a wireless microphone?
I'll jump in there and say yes, but not for Dubler, not for Dubler's purposes. The Dubler microphone you have here is wired to a USB port, and one of the reasons that we've selected this is to keep the latency as low as possible, and we've put a lot of work into getting it as low as possible, both on the software side and also on the hardware side in terms of selecting the different bits of hardware and configuring it. So yeah, adding wireless to it in any way is going to drastically change the latency. We had someone come in the other day and was fairly sure that their Bluetooth headphones would be, they're really snappy, they're really sharp. Put them in and then it was like 300 milliseconds latency. And that's the kind of thing that the wireless brings in, unfortunately. But the moment, with our triggers system, we're talking about 10 milliseconds. You couldn't do this with the Dubler mic because the Dubler mic is USB. The Dubler mic is USB because that way we incorporate the audio interface, which means that, because of course there are loads of low latency and amazing audio interfaces and much better audio interfaces than you will get inside the Dubler mic. We know that, we're not claiming otherwise. But what we didn't want is for someone to not be able to use Dubler in the way they're supposed to unless they had one of those, right? So that was why we wanted to incorporate the audio interface into the microphone, because that way we can ensure that at least it meets a certain high threshold of latency latencyy. But you could if you had I'm just thinking, you're going to hate this idea. Such an ultra low latency.
Well, you could have a radio. You could have a radio mic.
Do you reckon that'd be quick enough?
Yeah, radio mic probably would be quick enough.
Yeah, that is an option. But you'd have to
do
have your little radio pack on you and stuff.
You wouldn't be using the Dubler mic then, and so if you're not, and you can use, we're not. It's not locking. The software's not locking to the microphone on purpose because we don't want to do that. We want people to be able to experiment and do all sorts of things. We just can't guarantee it will work, which is why we have the microphone, because that way we know that it will work. But if you want to experiment with a radio mic, and then you'll probably have to spend a while working on the gain settings, and I'll be honest, there's no guarantee it'll work, right? That's why we do the mic. But you could definitely try it, and if it was a radio microphone, you might get low latency.
Yeah.
I'd be interested. If
let us
know.
Give it a go. Yeah.
Another question?
No more questions at the moment.
Let's do some spooky sounds.
Yeah. So, right, let's switch over to this. So, I have on my profile here, I don't know what George has gone for. George has set up a spooky set, and I've set
Mine's terrible.
Mine's kind of simple. It's easy. Sound design with scary stuff is very fun, and it's easy to get stuck into it. So I've got just some pitch stuff. I've set my notes. I've got rid of notes that sound harmonic, and I've just set a group of notes that are just a semitone apart to make it sound a bit spooky.
Make it sound creepy. I should have done that. That's a good idea.
So it will just keep me creepy no matter what.
In the different scales that we've got available, the creepy scale isn't available.
Yeah.
As a little Halloween Easter egg.
And then it's on custom, creepy custom. And then on here I've just got a few different sounds which I can't remember what. Let's start with this one. Okay, I'm gonna build up a bit.
That's good.
Right, let's put in this sound. My voice actually adds to the microtonal.
That's how creepy it is.
Yeah. And then my fave is the bass. Oh, if I arm it.
Oh god, that is creepy.
The crackle only adds to it. Liam's laptop is now doing a lot at the same time. Well, that's good, yeah.
Yeah, that's running 3 lots of contact with 2 Spitfire audio plugins. So it's not having a good time right now.
Well,
Streaming, yeah.
They're my spooky sounds basically with my voice.
That's good. I like it. Okay, I'm going to show you mine.
All right.
But I don't have my audio is going to sound a lot worse because it's actually coming through my laptop and then through the mic.
What's the feedback on my spooky sounds?
Much better than mine. I should have done mine first.
No, there's no feedback about sorry.
Okay. In contrast, my spooky sounds were all done with in the Ableton suite available instruments.
Oh,
because
see, now it's all DIY and cool compared to my being like.
yeah, but you see how how you pay the price for that. I'll tell you. Right, so I've got this one. So I have the.
Shift this over a bit.
I think I have mapped something. Okay, that's a bit weird. It's not very good. Let's try this one.
Yours is like 80s creepy.
It's the only creepy I know. Okay, let's try this one. They're all basically the same. Oh no, this was more fun. That's where I need to have the right scale on.
Yeah, that sounds kind of nice. And
Yeah, I'm happy.
Okay, what's this one?
That was good.
Okay, we're going to skip on to what I'm really proud of, which is this. Hang on. So I made a custom drum rack. Wait, we're not on. Arm it.
Wow.
So I got a few others in here.
Could you try beatboxing?
You could. It's going to sound awful.
Yeah, let's make a beat. It's kind of a
Pterodactyl.
little bit hip hoppy there for a minute.
Kelly gave me one instruction, and that was not to do anything lame, and I've just completely ignored that. Anyway, that's my spooky sounds. So,
Can I just jump in with a quick question,
Yeah.
Brandon? Does the Dubler software analyse pitch to the closest semitone or the closest cent?
Does it analyse pitch the closest semitone or the closest? It actually it does it much closer than that. It does it to a fraction of a hertz, which at high frequency is very much a fraction of a cent. But we're considering it down towards fractions of a frequency, and then we have different systems that are trying to quantize the note, which means tries to correct it to the nearest note based on the frequency.
Yeah, if we go over to Dubler quickly, let's put this back on chromatic. As you go round,
Yeah. So Karen doing that in. So that's actually the raw frequency output is coming into the pitch wheel as it goes around, and that's being mapped onto the pitch wheel. And then there are some algorithms that are going on behind the scenes which are then choosing the correct MIDI notes. And then we've got some settings in this pitch area that allow you to kind of change how quickly it's changing notes and stuff like that. But yeah, coming back to the original question, our potential accuracy is to really as low as lower than a single hertz in some cases.
And can we just do a little quick demo for Lino of locking to a key?
Yeah.
Sure.
Have we got non-spooky instruments?
yeah, I was about to say, I'm going to stick in, let me change. Well, we can just do, I'll just put in what we had before without whistling. It's just a simple like sine wave. So this should just be a simple sine wave. So basically, you'll see on Dubler, let me change this to channel. So at the moment it's picking up all the notes as they go around. And you see it's getting all those little ones as I go in between a note. Da, 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 da. There's little, it's picking up the ones in between. But if I lock to a key, say I want a minor pentatonic and then have it in F sharp, then you see these dots here. I don't know if you can see them. These are basically the notes that are in that scale that will only hit. So now if I go and it will just keep me in.
This is
F
probably
sharp,
also a
minor
good
pentatonic.
opportunity to show how the pitch stickiness works.
Yeah, sure. So you
Although
want to keep in that scale? Or?
So keeping that scale, so if you
Yeah.
go over to pitch,
Yeah.
Now I'm not exactly sure on which build we're on here, so whether or not
We're
this
on
is-
with no
2
gradients.
point-
And
Yeah.
I
But-
actually have a sort of question, actually, also, that might be able to feed into this.
Mhm.
From Mike, can we still do vibrato but stick to pitch? In other words, tune it but still allow for vibrato effects?
Yes. Will
Wow.
pitch bend.
See, this is what I was talking about the other day. That
Right.
Still tune it. So what you can do, this is what
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
what you can do is put pitch bend on, which on it allows you to follow the note exactly. So if we go over and just quickly put that on, you'll see. So obviously, if you have pitch bend on, it doesn't matter if you've got a key fix on in a way.
Probably 2.
Yeah, 2. I'd try.
Yeah. Actually, I think Synthmaster
Oh, it
is a bit
doesn't-
strange with that.
Okay. Yeah. That's
That's
the other thing with pitch bend is it really depends on what synth you're using.
Yeah, but
what
if
you
we
should
put
be applying.
in, let's just go.
So if you have pitch bend on, which we're going to show you now, then it can follow it follows the note exactly as you're singing it. So if you're closest to a C, then it's going to start by triggering a C, but then it's going to automatically bend to whatever position you are. So if you're a little bit flat, it's going to bend it down. If you're a little bit sharp, it's going to bend it up, which means if you do a vibrato, then it's going to follow that frequency as you're doing it. But the flip side is it follows everything you do. So if you, it's not going to hold. If you're not doing a vibrato perfectly around a note, then it's not going to do a vibrato perfectly around a note. It's going to do it wherever you're doing it. We were actually having a conversation earlier in the week as to saying, could we have something which that is smart enough to identify the difference between wanting to bend away from the note and not wanting to bend away from the note, and that would be where it really fixes to the C, but if you apply vibrato, it also applies vibrato on the note. And I think you can actually do that with Dubler, but you just have to do a little bit more setup in your DAW, depending which DAW you're using, because you can use the control data that we're getting, but you don't use it as pitch bend, use it as vibrato. I haven't tried how to do that, but I think it probably is possible actually. Probably, because you can get a vibrato. Is it a CC number?
It comes out as a pitch bend value, which is a bit like a CC number because it comes out between 0 and 127. So yeah, it comes out like that.
I'm going to experiment on this because I think yes, it's going to be possible, but it might require a little bit of work on the DAW side if using Logic or Ableton or whatever. But I do think it's one thing that we might end up making a bit easier to do at some point in the future, won't be for this release.
It has made me wonder what happens. Should really know, but like what happens when you're set to a scale and you're pitch bending, what the actual behaviour is.
It's interesting what happens if you're, because if you're on a scale like the pentatonic where you can actually skip several notes and your pitch bend range is less than that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have we got something to demo? I mean, that's doing it. I think it's the right range. So you can hear as I go. I'm able to bend it around. It's a very unusual.
That was a random one. I mean, let's pick another random
a trombone
one.
would be great. Something like that you can just something really obvious where you can just slide it up and down.
If we just go for
brass anywhere.
Let's go for just synth lead.
Okay, yeah.
Suva.
It's very aggressive.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Let's go back to the Dubler app and let me show the thing with the pitch stickiness as well.
Yeah, we can just go back.
So the answer on vibrato is yes, you can put pitch bend on, you can control it very closely, but it won't necessarily lock to note in the same way. Right, I'm just going to quickly switch your pitch bend off. Okay, so we've got this pentatonic minor and F sharp is applied, so you've only got these 5 notes. Does it share the cursor as well? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, we'll do, yeah.
So the way that the stickiness works, this isn't how it works. There's a lot more going on to it than this. But basically, it's how definite you have to be leaving the note that you're on to get to a new note before it actually triggers it. So if I sing something here, so I'm singing there an A, and if I want to go down to the next note in the pentatonic, you see I've gone more than halfway and it still hasn't triggered the next note, and that's because the stickiness is up here. But if I bring this down a bit, as soon as I go beyond halfway it triggers the next note. I should have gone for something higher because it's quite difficult to do.
Yeah, that's like 2 steps. Let's put on...
Oh, that was good.
Oh, okay.
And then if I have the stickiness right up, so you have to get all the way to the next note before it triggers it. And there are advantages and disadvantages to this. The advantage being you're much less likely to trigger a note accidentally. You know, if you are singing with a lot of vibrato, you don't want to accidentally trigger the note above. So you might want to have your stickiness up, but then if you have your stickiness up and you do want to travel quickly between notes, it's obviously going to be a little bit more laggy. So that's why you have it as a slider, and you can experiment with whatever settings you want depending on your use case.
Yeah.
I have another question from Dorio. He's saying he wants to use Dubler in a live scenario, and he's asking, will Dubler be confused with the sound of his guitar and his voice in a live setting at a gig?
Well, I would come in with this. We've been tuning the let's call it the input gates for the Dubler to be well. First of all, the input sensitivity. We call it sensitivity. We might tweak that name a bit. We can tune that sensitivity so the microphone becomes less, or you can tune the sensitivity so that the microphone becomes less sensitive. So if you're in a gig, you could bring the microphone quite close to your mouth, and it will only be picking up what you're doing and not picking up the guitar at all. And in fact, I think you guys went to the Rattle, didn't you? And you tried that.
There is an AMA if you look through our YouTube. I think it's just called Dubler in a Live Environment, where we basically just stand in between 2 monitors and turn it up very, very loud.
God, it was so loud.
To see if it will start picking up the feedback picking up the sound from the monitors and using that to trigger. But what we found once you go in there, it got incredibly loud and still didn't. It was loud enough that we sort of didn't want to go any further so we didn't damage our ears before it would trigger. But Georgia,
there is a difference between the feedback and the percussive stuff and the pitched stuff. If you do have a very pure pitched tone, then it might. So that's what I was just thinking. And then if you get closer,
if you put it really close.
The guitar's maybe slightly out of tune.
Yeah. The guitar's
But if it's up here. And
it's also picking up mine.
That's the thing about the Dubler office. At any time, there might be something picking up your voice or the sounds you make.
But yeah, I mean, you can see there on default sensitivity.
So you have to be quite close, really.
Yeah, you have to be close. But you can actually change it so that if you're more comfortable with the microphone further away, we've put in an option so that you can control how far away you want it to be. So you've got the option if you want to be in a live environment, or if you want to be in a studio environment that's far away from it. You can do both of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any?
I think that's all of the questions actually.
That's it. I'm going to do a quick bit of beatboxing just to show that it doesn't just do weird spooky sounds. Don't have no idea what that weird sound is. Okay, it can just to prove that it still does work, because I just realised all the demos we've done today have been pretty weird.
Yeah. No, it's on this one.
Cool, well, it's the 31st of October, it's Halloween, we're about 2 to 3 weeks away from when we think things will be shipped out.
Yeah.
We will be giving you tracking information as soon as as soon as they're delivered. We will let you know as soon as they arrive in the UK, which will be 4th of November, we hope. And so if there are any like minor delays along that, we'll just let you know as soon as they happen. Hopefully there won't be. And fingers crossed, everyone receives their Dubler Studio kits this month. If you happen to be on the space station or something like that, it might take slightly longer. But
That's it. Yeah.
okay.
Cool.
Cool. Well, let us know if you have any more questions. Drop them in the comments. Send us emails. Contact us through Facebook, and we'll either answer them. Well, we'll try and answer them all straight away. But if it's something for an AMA that requires a demo, we'll do that next time.
Thanks to Kelly for answering a lot of the questions in the chat.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Cool.
See you
Bye.
later.
Bye.